Hi there, can everyone hear me? All right, wonderful. Well, as Elaine said, my name is Weston. I'm from Project Share of Carlisle. We're a large food pantry serving Carlisle and Cumberland County. And we run a lunch and learn program here. It runs for about 8 weeks, 3 days per week, from mid-June to mid-August. And we serve about 120 children per day. And we do this at 5 satellite locations, cooking out of one centralized kitchen. Last year, we were blessed to be able to use Carlisle High School's auxiliary kitchen, which was awesome, to be able to use their large convection ovens. And so basically my vision for summer food is to keep everything minimally processed, low in added sugar and salt, and to use local produce when and wherever possible. So as Audrey kind of mentioned earlier about defining the term local, it's somewhat an ambiguous term and has no set definition. I chose to define local for my organization as within Cumberland County and neighboring counties. So this includes Cumberland, Perry, Franklin, Adams, York, and Dauphin. There's a few reasons I chose to have preference towards listing these products so close to home. So the first reason was I have pretty small order sizes. So for example, when I pick up soft fruit, it's typically only 2 to 3 bushels at a time. So pickup is typically mandatory from the farms. So a closer farm within Cumberland and surrounding areas is certainly better so I don't have to travel as far for pickup. So secondly, the reason for listing so close to home is it allows for a much more personalized relationship with the farmer, since you're the one picking up the produce from the farm. So I found instead of when you're talking to a lot bigger farmers, when you're trying to solicit product and have different preferences, sometimes you talk to just an employee who might not know a lot of the specifications, whereas when I actually talk to the farmers, I can build a relationship with the farm owner and give preference to farms that meet my preferences. So while calling around and talking to farmers, you can ask about their growing practices. Are they organic? Are they pesticide-free, low pesticide, integrated pest management? For our organization, I take preference to farms that either grow organically or use low pesticide growing practices such as integrated pest management. A lot of times this might be on their farm's website. However, a lot of times it's best just to contact the farms and talk to the farmer. A lot of local farms will be more than glad to discuss their growing practices with you. So using low pesticide farming or organic farming is not only better for our kids, but it also supports demand for these practices within your local community. So, to put local foods into action, how exactly do you do this as a small organization? So, when planning for the incorporation of local foods into your program, as Elaine and Audrey really discussed, the first thing to look at is what produce is available and when is it available, and to also look at your menu and see where you have already incorporated local foods and or where you can incorporate these local foods. So like Audrey and Elaine said, you can use resources like the PA Preferred Seasonality Chart, which is the picture in the background here, and also talk to local farmers in the area, beginning in April or May, and to really find out when certain products will be in season. Spring weather, I found, seems like has a lot to do with harvest times. Say if we get a really late frost in May, it might kill off some of the blossoms. So the harvest times won't always match up with the PA Preferred charts. So this is one reason, again, to build relationships with the farmers and talk to them to find out exactly when the harvest will be. And once you find a farm that can supply you with your needs and meet your specs, I'd recommend to keep on top of harvest times. So whenever you talk to the farmers, just kind of ask them, hey, just curious, are plums still on for the week of July 20th? Sometimes it might get pushed back or pushed ahead, so it's always good to just keep on top of farmers and keep asking them. As I discussed, another more hands-on approach is to visit your local farmers markets and see what they can offer. It seemed like, for me at least, at the Carlisle Farmers Market, by the time I really started asking the small farms and CSAs about what they had, they already had their plans drawn out and seeds in the ground. So if you'd like to work with smaller CSAs, I would recommend meeting with them in late February or early March and actually plan out a growing schedule that they can grow crops specifically for your program. Now, the buying process I used was sort of a mix of a micro purchase method and an informal procurement method. Our purchases, they're well under $3,500. So I could have used the micro purchase method. However, to be best stewards of our federal funds, I still shopped around for most of my products to achieve all the best values, as well as to ask about growing practices. So this really allowed me to really solicit to vendors that fit my preferences. And as I mentioned earlier, all my purchases were too small for delivery, so really pickup was my only option. I added my organization's mileage rate as well as my hourly rate when calculating the overall cost of product. So when purchasing, for instance, if one farm offered the same price as another on peaches, so they both, say, offered $18.50 for a bushel of peaches, but I had to travel 20 miles further for the product, I picked the closer farm. So for those of you who run a program mostly on your own, certainly keep this in mind when sourcing your products. So keep gas and time and mileage. They can add up quite quickly over the summer. And as I mentioned in slide number 3, one of the benefits of working with local farms is I was able to have direct oversight over quality control. So, for instance, the particular farm that I purchased soft fruit from, they allowed me to pack my own bushels. So this not only allowed me to pick exact fruit size, but it allowed me to pick peaches and nectarines that would be at their peak of ripeness for the days needed. So say if I needed peaches for 2 days from the date of pickup, I could select peaches that would be at their peak of ripeness. The last thing you want to do is purchase a bunch of peaches, and then the day you serve them, they're not ripe at all, and kids decide they don't like peaches because they had a peach that wasn't ripe. So always definitely keep that in mind too when purchasing product, to keep an eye on fruit ripeness and when you'll be serving that fruit. So again, this is another benefit of working directly with the farms you're purchasing from. And so some items, such as berries, can be very pricey, especially when buying 60 or 70 pounds at a time. But definitely don't let this prevent you from serving these little nutrition pack goodies into your program. Some farms do allow for a U-pick or pick your own for pretty significant price drops. Check a website called pickyourown.org for farms in your area that allow for U-pick. This saved us lots of money, specifically on blueberries, and it assured our children were getting the freshest berries and the highest quality berries. So since me and my volunteers were able to pick the berries ourselves, we were able to pick the berries that were ripest and in the best condition possible. For my program, I recruited 2 volunteers to go along with me, and picking actually went fairly quickly. As I put here in the slide, for blueberries, we paid about $2 a pound for U-pick, and for already picked, the cheapest I could find was about $3.50 a pound. And I would have had to go and pick those up at the farm as well. So again, that would have added to cost. And so another benefit to picking fruit yourself is it really kind of adds a close-to-home perspective for the children. The site supervisors told me that the kids were quite excited that when they heard that I picked the blueberries myself. The one day I was even able to go visit a site when we were having blueberries, and I was able to discuss with the kids that I had picked those blueberries myself, and the one boy seemed very, very excited about that. So it adds a whole other dimension into your summer food program. And Audrey mentioned this earlier about what all you can procure for local food. So many of us will just think local fruits and vegetables. However, you can procure things like dairy, grains, as well as meat into your summer foods program. So one of the items on my menu was a pizza. And so I was thinking, how can I implement local foods with pizza? So being in Harrisburg area for a while and through my local food connections, I contacted a bakery who was able to make huge batches of pizza dough for me that I was able to pick up. And all this grain was locally grown, pesticide-free, grown in Dauphin County. And she milled it right there at her bakery. So I was able to have whole wheat pizza dough that was local for the kids. And additionally, since we're serving veggie and ranch dip throughout the veggies and ranch dip throughout the summer, I decided to make my own ranch from local grass-fed buttermilk from Franklin County. Not only was it fresher, it was tastier, and healthier, but it turned out to be actually a lot cheaper than buying bottles of ranch or ranch packets. And as some of us know, a lot of these ranch packets are filled with MSG and all kinds of other preservatives. So making it fresh was very beneficial. Getting your kids excited about local fruits and vegetables will also significantly increase consumption. So really let your site supervisors know what foods are local and get them excited about serving fruits. If the kids see that the adults are getting excited about peaches, then the kids will get excited too. Kids are often like sponges. So another idea is to create colorful menus and come up with fun names. So when sending daily menus out to my sites, I color coordinated my menus. So when I put peaches on the menus, peaches were in bright orange letters. And I came up with names like Saturn Donut Peaches while we're doing the astrology curriculum of our program. Or Cosmic Corn was another one. And by coming up with these fun names, it really has quite an effect. Another idea to further connect children with food is through activities and games. So during the blueberry season, for instance, I sent fun worksheets to each site, and the supervisor said this helped big time in the consumption of blueberries. It just really gets kids excited, and for an unfamiliar food, it makes them a bit more comfortable trying it. Another thing that we did was we had a share table. So if a child, for instance, didn't want their blueberries, they could put it on our share table for another child to grab. This not only reduced waste, but it increased consumption in the children that like that particular food. And this slide's just showing a few of the activities we did. So the first picture shows a fruit and vegetable color game. So we came up with different fruits and vegetables that were red or yellow or orange or purple or green. This gets kids excited about fruits and vegetables. And on the other picture, you'll see a worksheet that we did a little label reading activity and looked at milk and looked at chocolate milk versus whole milk. Again, this is just another way to bring in some nutrition activities into your summer food program. So I'll mention this very quickly. We did a small gardening activity in our summer food program. Since our summer food program revolves around reading and learning about different books, one of the books that we read was The Lorax. So for those of you who have read The Lorax, and in the end, The Lorax gives one of the children a plant to plant a new truffula tree. And so one of our activities was we planted basil seeds. This was a great garden activity, especially for those programs who do not have a space for a garden, nor staff time or funds for a garden. So you can always do little activities like this. Really the only things we needed were bags of garden soil, solo cups, and basil seeds. And the children were able to take this home with instructions and care for these plants at the house. So looking at my 2018 program, I'll be partnering with a local nonprofit CSA up in Perry County for vegetables. I met with her actually in late February. So as I mentioned earlier in one of my slides, some of the smaller CSAs you kind of have to meet with earlier just to make sure they can set up rows specifically for your organization. This particular organization offers 50% retail for local nonprofits and child care centers. So they really beat prices from all the other farms that I was able to contact. They really blew them out of the water by offering that. And this organization also acts as a middleman with local fruit farms to supply storage apples, stone fruit, and berries. And another benefit of this is they're able to deliver once a week to their office in downtown Carlisle, which is about a mile from our organization's office. So that, again, cuts down on gas, mileage reimbursement, as well as hours to go pick up the food. And as the slide says, I'll also be purchasing some grass-fed yogurt from a local creamery at the Carlisle Farmers Market. By purchasing in 5-gallon buckets, which are returnable, it not only reduces costs, but reduces waste as well. 2018 activities will be creating our own smoothies, doing small indoor grow tents at each location for herbs and microgreens. This is kind of a transition into hopefully in the future having a full summer garden. However, for now, this will just get kids in interaction with seeing a seed grow into a plant. We'll also be taking a trip to a local blueberry farm to take a farm tour, pick blueberries, and learn all about bees. So that's a brief overview of my program, and I will pass it off now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Weston. That was fantastic. Okay, Weston kind of provided us with an example primarily of the local food component of a Farm to Summer program. I'm going to turn it over now to Giselle Cosentino, who's going to talk about a wonderful gardening experience at Camp Garrett. So with that, I'll turn it over to Giselle.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around. My name is Giselle Cosentino, and I'm the director of Camp Garrett. And I'm here with my colleague, our farmer extraordinaire. I'm going to have her introduce herself really quickly.
Hi, my name is Zoe Blickendorfer, and I am the garden program coordinator at Camp Garrett.
Excellent. So she'll be available if anyone has specific questions about gardening at the end of the presentation. So I just wanted to give you a very brief overview of what we do. We're a partner of our Garrett Williamson is sort of the parent organization, and Garrett Williamson operates both Camp Garrett and Garrett's Way Child Care Center for 6-week-old babies through kindergarten. So we have the advantage of having multiple, kids here kind of all year long. We are located in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, about 30 miles west of Philadelphia. And we do have indoor spaces, including our lodge, lots of nature trails, a swimming pool, and of course our garden, which is why we're here today. We believe everyone deserves to reach their potential and offer financial assistance based on need, which means that we serve about 180 campers per week, and that works out about the same per day. And about half of those kids receive a full or partial scholarship in order to participate in camp. And about a third of our campers qualify for SFSP reimbursement. But we do provide all of our campers and staff a free breakfast, lunch, and snack every day. So that means we're cooking on-site 250 meals per day. So, hello? Sorry about that. I heard a piercing noise. So this is what our garden looks like today. It's a place of learning and fun, filled with new flavors, smells, and textures, but it did not always look like this. We started out with a small pilot garden 5 summers ago. This is the second year of our pilot garden. It had doubled in size from the previous year, and we added a simple fence. At this point, there was enough harvest for children to sample a couple of new veggies, every week or so. but we didn't have the quantity to incorporate into our camp lunches, and that did become our goal. So we took over an old baseball field, got our community involved, and started soliciting donations, and went along and built about a half-acre garden. Our campers love planting, watering is a highlight, harvesting, taste testing vegetables, and believe it or not, they even love weeding. Over the last 3 years, we've harvested more than 2,000 pounds of produce each year. So think about that. That's like a ton per year. Some of those items that we harvest include corn, which is this picture. We also harvest squash, tomatoes, potatoes, garlic, onions, greens like spinach and kale and chard, carrots, herbs, watermelons, and camp favorite, lots of beans. Thanks to some community partnerships, we also grow heirloom varieties of vegetables and culturally significant plants to the communities we serve. Most of the food we grow is eaten by campers or our staff, or any surplus harvest goes to our families in the child care program. A small amount is also sold for donations, and occasionally, highlight for our campers, they get to take a bag of veggies home to share with their families, and they get to do that pretty regularly during the summer. Our menu features protein alternatives, with meat being only served once a week. We cook everything from scratch on site, and we sneak protein into various food items, including, for example, our tomato sauce has kidney beans, our pesto has a base of white beans, ranch dip that we make with Greek yogurt for a boost of protein. Our current goal is to incorporate at least one garden item in our lunches every day. So, for example, we might have tomatoes in our garden salsa and long beans in one of the 3 veggie options for our stir fry. If you're interested, our menu is available on our website, and that will be my last slide, so feel free to go check it out if you have any questions about the 2-week cycle that we have. Over the last 2 years, we've diverted approximately 1,500 pounds of food waste to compost each year, which is also a highlight for us since we're a nature camp. The way we've reduced food waste is by better managing the food in the kitchen, a kid-friendly menu, and a switch to served meals rather than family-style service. Our campers have a choice about how many different vegetables go on their plate, since they may want broccoli but not carrots. Everything related to our garden is an opportunity to learn. Campers directly interact with plants and soil and insects and worms. They learn what plants need to be healthy and what we as humans need to be healthy. So have we convinced you yet of the value of a garden? And are you thinking about serving farm-to-summer meals? So these are some things that we've learned along the way, suggestions for success. If they have a hand in growing something, they will taste it. It never ceases to amaze us how they're willing to put something that just came out of the ground covered in dirt in their mouths to taste it. So if they grow it, they will taste it. The other thing that we do that works really well is we taste test vegetables and recipes often. We talk about how things taste differently when they're cooked from when they're raw. And of course, the more often you taste something, the more likely you are going to like it in the future. So we want everybody to taste everything every day, even if it's just a small sample. Obviously, we also provide choice. So it used to be that our stir-fry vegetables were all together combined. Now we let them pick and choose which of the options they would like on their rice. Really important is also creating a culture of excitement around food, and Weston mentioned it as well. Obviously, staff should be excited about trying these new foods, and when staff is excited, then so are the children. One thing that we do is have our garden cheer anytime we're serving something out of the garden, so the kids know exactly what's coming out and what is on their plate that they had a hand in growing. And of course, really important to make connections about how our bodies and minds are connected and what role food has played in our culture and traditions and history. So we try to make that as engaging as possible. So you're interested in starting a garden, hopefully, at this point. Here are some lessons that we've learned. Probably first and foremost, you want to establish priorities and have a vision for what this garden is going to be and what it's going to do for you. In our case, the garden was never about production. It was always about education. And so a garden that is about producing as many vegetables as possible is going to look a lot different than our educational garden. Certainly think about your stakeholders and make sure that you get buy-in from everybody. That would include leadership, but also children and families involved in your program. We also realized that it was super important to have our kitchen on board because we're cooking our meals from scratch. It's a lot different than warming things up. And so the kitchen had to know how to process fresh chard and be prepared for that. And also our grounds crew. Historically, I found from my experiences, sometimes folks who work on the grounds don't love gardens because of their aesthetics. So super important to get buy-in from everyone. Start small and think big. So just like we did, we started with a really small garden and have continued to grow it every year. And that, I think, is a really kind of stable way to grow your programming. Of course, have a plan in place for how you're going to maintain the garden, whether it's going to be managed by volunteers or staff or both. Be really clear about what that's going to look like when you begin. And then, of course, plan for regular communication between the farmer and the kitchen staff. So our kitchen staff needs to know when that huge load of chard is going to come in to ensure that it's handled, to the best use it possibly can be and that it's predictable timing. And the other thing you want to do is think about what you're going to do with the surplus produce. In our case, we have so many tomatoes on our plants after summer camp is over. So what are you going to do when you can't use the produce anymore? I wanted to mention briefly, because I feel like this is a limiting factor for a lot of folks who may want to have a garden, like what do we have in terms of staff who can handle this? Again, just like the size of the garden, our staffing situation had changed over the last 5 years. We started with a part-time farmer who transitioned into a full-time seasonal farmer who worked only during summer camp season. And now 5 years later, we have Zoe on board who is a full-time permanent position, which allows for better planning and greater yields and really more meaningful education programming. So obviously, we're really happy to have her on board. Now you're probably thinking, great, well, we only operate in the summer, so we don't have a child care center to overflow our food. These are some suggestions that we have regarding summer-only situations. Obviously, try to shorten your growing season. So rather than sowing seeds directly into the ground, you can purchase those tomato plants, and they're going to be producing fruit a lot sooner. Select shorter growing season varieties of plants, and that's really easy. Just check the back of seed packets and look for the days of maturity, and that will be really predictable for when you can expect that harvest. Partner with local volunteers, and this has been really successful with Zoe, kind of cooperating with local high schools, our garden clubs, master gardeners, and just in general volunteers who use our facility who are interested in volunteering. So get as many people involved as you possibly can. And again, plan for the surplus late season produce. In our case, we freeze our tomatoes for the next summer, or sometimes we donate our food to food banks. We also give them to our families in child care. At Camp Garrett, we could see the effects this program was having on our campers even after the first summer. And we have now gone through a few years, and last year we solicited parent evaluations. And something that came out of there was really not surprising, but I wanted to share some of the results with you. Specifically, 86% of our campers have an increased desire to spend time outdoors, and 81% of our campers enjoy hands-on activities. Parents have also seen an increased vocabulary and knowledge around healthy food choices in 77% of our campers, and 86% of our campers are more willing to try new foods at home. We're really proud of these results. We feel privileged to be in this unique situation where we can feed our campers fresh local food, which they've had a hand in growing. And we wanted to thank you for allowing us to share our story. This is our contact information. That's me above. Zoe is our Farm and Garden Program Coordinator, and campgarrett.org is our website. And obviously, we didn't get to share everything about our program, so if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to either me or Zoe. We're happy to talk about our garden all the time. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating today.
Thank you.